The NFL in 2025 has felt like a bit of a fever dream, with all the madness that we've experienced through the first 7 weeks of the season. There are preseason favorites limping through October, unheralded players are stealing headlines, and a notorious cellar dweller that is on the rise. The season has been chock-filled with surprises, to put it lightly. This is exactly why the NFL touts itself as the league of ultimate parity. Many of the teams that looked great on paper coming into the season, some of which were serious contenders last year, have fallen off in dramatic fashion. And we've seen a handful of upstart squads blowing their expectations out of the water. So as we approach the season's midway point, how about we break down 5 NFL teams that have been surprisingly good and 5 that have been huge disappointments. Surprisingly good? Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Few rosters have flipped their narrative faster than Tampa Bay. Back in August, the Bucs were a popular pick to come out of the lowly NFC South, but most analysts were predicting maybe 10 or 11 wins at best, thinking that they'd play a ton of close games and have a few nice wins, but they would hover in mediocrity. But here they are, 6 games in, and they're 5-1 with one of the nastiest defenses in football, and a revitalized quarterback in Baker Mayfield, who is quickly climbing in the MVP race. Starting off with the D, Todd Bowles' group looks a bit of like a throwback to the early 2000s Bucs. Heavy blitz packages, suffocating secondary, and a front seven that feeds on opposing quarterbacks. They're among the tops in the league for takeaways and giving Baker in the offense more than enough leeway to take ample shots downfield. Speaking of Baker, he is playing like a man possessed and obsessed with proving all his doubters in Cleveland, Carolina, and beyond wrong. The former #1 overall pick has found the sweet spot between gunslinger and game manager. He's limiting turnovers, hitting timing throws, and finding a way to orchestrate big plays regardless of all the injuries that the team has had to endure thus far. Even losing Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, the franchise's 2 best receivers in history, hasn't slowed them down a bit. Depth receivers are producing, the run game is serviceable, and the locker room feels connected and thriving. The football they play is functional, physical, and it's working. Tampa may not sustain this clip all year, but if they can get healthy down the stretch, then heck, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with come playoff time. Huge disappointment, Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore has been one of the biggest disappointments in the league so far, without question. The Ravens sit at 1-5, and the offense has looked lost since Lamar Jackson went down with a hamstring strain in Week 4. He's expected back soon, but the damage has been done, and they're going to have their work cut out for them in a serious way, trying to climb back into the playoff race once he does return. The problems run deep in the Charm City, too. The line has struggled to protect the quarterback, the scheme feels stale, and even Derrick Henry, brought in to give him balance, has been uncharacteristically bad. Defensively, they're giving up late game breakdowns, which is the kind of collapse that Ravens teams used to inflict, not suffer. Fans expected a deep playoff push, a strong D, and an MVP caliber run from Lamar, but instead, it's been nothing but missed opportunities, injuries, and sheer frustration. Baltimore has time to right the ship, but this start has been jarring. The Ravens are not just losing, they're looking like a squad that's in real danger of losing its identity entirely. Surprisingly good, Indianapolis Colts. Okay, anyone who had the Colts getting off to a 5-1 start, we need to see some receipts. Somehow, Jones has become a stabilizing force in Indianapolis, to the point that Anthony Richardson feels like a bad dream. Now Indy sits atop the AFC South and is winning the kinds of tight games that used to break him. Head coach Shane Steichen deserves a ton of credit. He simplified the offense, leaned into Jones's mobility, and turned the run game into a weekly problem for defenses. Jonathan Taylor is running all over everyone and looks every bit the part of a franchise bell cow back, running behind an impressively consistent O-line. Defensively, Indy has been led by a youth movement and done a great job of bearing down in key situations, getting off the field on 3rd and down and delivering red zone stops. The Colts have gone from an afterthought to a legitimate playoff threat. Their upcoming stretch against Jacksonville and Kansas City will tell us how real it is, though. But for right now, the Colts are doing everything right, and it has to feel good for their fan base, who's been on the struggle bus ever since Andrew Luck's surprise retirement back in 2019. Huge disappointment, Tennessee Titans. Tennessee entered the 2025 season with modest expectations. Nobody was expecting a Super Bowl run, but most fans and analysts figured that they'd be competitive. Maybe 7 or 8 win kind of team that could maybe hang around the wild card race for at least a part of the season and build on the excitement of starting their #1 overall pick from 2024 quarterback Cam Ward. Yeah, instead, the Titans have been one of the hardest watches in football, stumbling out to a miserable 1-5 start and firing head coach Brian Callahan before Halloween. spooky. And it's not just the record, it's really just how they've gotten there. The offense has been a complete mess to the point that they're risking Ward's development. Now with Mike McCoy stepping in as interim head coach, the Titans are trying to patch together something resembling direction, but their prospectus just feels grim. The hope is that McCoy can stabilize the locker room and get some fight back into that roster. But 6 weeks in, it feels like Tennessee's season is already on life support, and the rebuild is looking like it might take another couple of years to really form. Surprisingly good? New England Patriots. After years of post-Brady drift, the Patriots finally look like a real football team again. And all it took was a familiar face to bring the old culture back. Mike Vrabel's first season in charge has gone about as well as anyone in Foxborough could have hoped for, as New England sits at 4-2 and leading the AFC East halfway through October. This team looks fundamentally different, and that is not by accident. Vrabel has instilled a gritty, detail-oriented mentality that mirrors the best Patriots squads of the early 2000s. They're physical on defense, efficient on offense, and disciplined from the first whistle to the last. Quarterback Drake May has been a revelation. He isn't putting up wild numbers, but he's calm, composed, and clearly in command of that offense. His poise and pocket awareness have drawn comparisons to the early years of Tom Brady, a fitting compliment for the franchise that made that style of football famous. Much to the chagrin of NFL fans outside of the greater New England area, the Patriots finally look like the Patriots again. And in a division that looked impossible to conquer entering the year, they are proven that smart coaching and a clear identity still go a long way. Huge disappointment, Kansas City Chiefs. For the first time in what feels like forever, the Kansas City Chiefs look mortal. Now, the tides do look like they might just be starting to turn with that impressive win over Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, but at 3-3, this has been a start that feels more like 2012 than the dynasty years. The offense looks broken by their lofty standards, at least. It's been inconsistent, predictable, and far too dependent on Patrick Mahomes to make something out of nothing. To make matters worse, the Chiefs' pass rush took a big hit when Felix Audike-Uzomah landed on injury reserve early in the year. Without consistent pressure up front, Kansas City's defense has been left on the field far too long, and the secondary has paid the price. Andy Reid's brilliance hasn't disappeared, but it's clear that this roster just needs a reset, or that Coach Reid has to find a way to reshape their offensive strategy in order to keep this dynasty going. There is still plenty of time for Mahomes to play superhero and salvage the season, but at least for now, the Chiefs have come back to earth and the rest of the league has noticed. And, well, they're looking eager to get their shot at the big, bad KC. Surprisingly good, Seattle Seahawks. If you had told anyone back in August that the Seattle Seahawks would be sitting comfortably above 500 with Sam Darnold leading one of the NFC's most efficient offenses, well, you probably would have been laughed off of football Twitter. After his stint in Minnesota last season under Kevin O'Connell, the general assumption was that Darnold's brief flashes of competence were more a product of O'Connell's system, and that once he left that structure, the same old turnover-prone quarterback would resurface. Instead, well, he's done the exact opposite and has Seattle in a good position to win a competitive NFC West. Darnold has been shockingly sharp, poised in the pocket, decisive with the football, and finally delivering on the arm talent that made him a top 3 pick way back when. He's thrown for north of 1,500 yards already and, most importantly, kept the interceptions to a minimum. A big part of that has been Jackson Smith-Njigba, who has quietly blossomed into one of the most complete young receivers in football. And to his credit, head coach Mike Macdonald, known for his defensive mind, has actually done a very underrated job tailoring this offense to his personnel. At this point, the Seahawks look for real. Just saying, don't be surprised if they end the season atop the division and even win a playoff game or two. Something that I don't think anyone was predicting heading into this year. Huge disappointment, Las Vegas Raiders. When the team hired Pete Carroll and brought in Geno Smith and first-round pick Ashton Jency, optimism ran high. The idea was that Carroll's culture and leadership could stabilize a talented but inconsistent roster. Instead, the Raiders have looked directionless and hell-bent on wasting Max Crosby's prime, stumbling to a 1-5 start and showing all the hallmarks of a team without a clear plan. Offensively, it has been painful to watch. The line can't hold up in pass protection, the play calling feels predictable, and Geno looks like a shadow of the comeback story that he was in Seattle. Jency has flash talent, but the blocking in front of him has left little room to work with. With Crosby leading the defense, the effort's there, but the cohesion just isn't. Miscommunications in the secondary have led to big plays, and the pass rush hasn't been nearly disruptive enough with opposing lines, forcing someone else to beat them. The Raiders had hoped that this experiment would be a culture reset. Instead, it's become a harsh reminder that it takes more than a coaching change to reset a franchise that's been stuck in the mud for a decade plus. Surprisingly good? Jacksonville Jaguars. With Liam Cohen now at the helm, the Jaguars have rediscovered balance on both sides of the ball. They're 4-2, playing smart, disciplined football, and showing real growth in areas that were major weaknesses a year ago. Trevor Lawrence has been the biggest beneficiary of Cohen's system. The emphasis on tactical motion, keeping him in rhythm, and enabling quick decision-making suits him perfectly. Lawrence is completing passes at one of the highest clips of his career, and his interceptions, a consistent thorn in his side, have been kept to a minimum. The defense, though, has been even more impressive. Jacksonville's front seven ranks among the league's top 10 in sacks, and the rotation has given them consistent pressure without ever relying on blitzes. Well, at least not too much. Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker are thriving, and the secondary is finally holding its own in coverage. This team is winning on the strength of strong preparation and confident play calling. They're not blowing opponents out, but they're winning close games by dictating tempo and minimizing mistakes, something that has eluded them for years. It's early, but if Jacksonville keeps trending in this direction, this might be the start of something. Huge disappointment? New York Jets. After hiring Aaron Glenn as head coach and acquiring Justin Fields to run the offense, expectations weren't sky high, but there was at least some hope of competence. A fresh start and a chance to stabilize, to stop being the punchline. Yeah, unfortunately, they've fallen flat on their face. At 0-6, the Jets have the worst record in football and an offense that has been, well, pretty dang unwatchable. Fields has struggled with decision-making, and the offense is dead last in scoring, averaging under 14 points per game and near the bottom in total yardage. And while the defense, led by Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, is still fighting, the lack of offensive rhythm is crushing morale. And the performance is following suit. You can really sense the frustration growing week by week, and it looks like a fire sale is imminent. The Jets aren't talentless, they're just stuck in the same cycle of inconsistency that's haunted them for over a decade. And at this point, the only thing they're winning is the early lead in next year's draft conversation. But hey, which NFL team do you think has been most surprisingly good? Who do you think's been the biggest disappointment? Who do you think we're right on here? Who do you think we're wrong about? Was there anything that we may have missed? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, then hey, clicking that like button helps us out a ton. And you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.